Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a end of the year reading recap. So yes, I'm just going to be talking about every single book that I read this year, and I'm not even done, but because I have one more book that I'm going to be reading, and I'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, and I'm very excited to read that book. So yes. Anyway, I wanted to read that in the end because I don't know. I just thought it would be fun. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into the video, and it's like 3 o'clock, so we need to hurry up before it gets dark. So we don't lose the lighting. So yes. And so let's start. The first book, oh, my iPad is giving my face very much lighting. But anyway, the first book that I read was Twisted Games by Anne Huang, and I really enjoyed the Twisted series books, but this one by far was not my favorite. I don't know what it was about this book in particular that really I just didn't like, but yeah, I just didn't like this book. And sorry, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure this is like Bridget and Reese's book, and yeah, I just did not like this book at all. I did like it, but I didn't enjoy. There was something just that I just didn't like about this book. So yeah. And then I finished reading Pride and Prejudice. If you guys know, this took me a very long time because, for one, I was annotating the book and I was just taking my time annotating it. So it was just not something that I was like worried about finishing anytime soon. But in the beginning of this year, I finished reading Pride and Prejudice, which I was very proud of. And yeah, this book is very good. I think it's very exciting. I think there's a lot of drama, and I think it's fun. And also, if this is like if you want to read a classic, I feel like this is one of the books that you would want to start with because it's pretty easy to understand and it's pretty fun as well because there's like drama. And if you've ever watched the movie, I feel like it's fun to like read the book and see all the lines that they used from the book. I think that's fun. And oh, mind you, I'm going to be talking about the manga that I read as well. So yeah. I read The Prince's Romance Gambit. I really liked this. I didn't really, sorry for the yawns. Um, but I think that this book like was really good. I think I never ended up finishing the series, but I thought it was a cute little romance. And then I read the second and the third one as well. And I don't know who it's by. I don't know. Oh, it's by Nikki Asada. And obviously, I didn't say like who Pride and Prejudice was because like I thought that was obvious, but it's Jane Austen, by the way. And then I read Shame by Skylar Mason, and I found this author off of TikTok. I don't know. Just one day I was like scrolling, of course, and I saw her video and I liked her video, so I was like, okay. And I was like, whenever I feel like reading her book, I will go and read her book. And then I was like, oh my gosh, her book is so good. So I decided to continue to read her book, her second book, and I really liked it. So yeah. So yeah, and then I don't know, I really love her books. I think they're kind of her books. This series in particular is like kind of about purity culture and breaking that, um, you know, breaking it, because it was not really the way, it was kind of preventing them from, you know, living their lives how they wanted to. So yeah, I thought it was really just a great book. I have not finished the series. I have one more book to read, I think. Yeah, I have to read the fourth one or something. So yeah, then I read Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, and when I tell you guys, I fell in love with this book, and this became my favorite book of all time. I'm telling you, this book became my favorite book of all time. I so much enjoyed this book. It was an obvious 5-star read. I just love this book, and I actually reread this book again. And yes, hold on, I gotta sneeze. Oh, bless me. So yes, I read this book and I just adored it, and I think there was a lot. Sorry, I'm so sorry, guys. I literally just woke up, so like, so I'm a little still tired, a little bit, but when I read this book, a lot of, like, when I like saw the thoughts and stuff that people had behind this book, they didn't really like it, or they just didn't understand it, which it's understandable, because at first I didn't really understand what was going on, but I still was so intrigued, and I was like, okay, this is like, this is so intriguing and so exciting. So I just kept on going, and I was like, oh my gosh, this book is incredible. And when I read it for the second time, I was like, oh, this is really, this is really amazing. I really enjoyed it, and I read it for the second time in the graphic novel edition. So I really just enjoyed this. And then I read Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Um, this book was kind of boring, to be honest, but it was a lovely story, and it also made me cry at the end. If you know, you know, like, just um yeah, I also watched the movie before, but um yeah, like, I never really watched it to its extent. Like, I never watched it in full, so I never like knew like everything that went on. So yeah, it's pretty good. And then I read Romeo and Juliet. I read the dramatized version. It was like really like play style. Like, the you could hear like noises and the action in the action scenes and all that stuff. It was really cool. But yeah. But to be honest, I don't know like what it was. I never read this in school, so I never like really knew what this book was. Really, it was not my it's not my cup of tea. I didn't really like it, but the book version that I read, the audiobook that I read was very enjoyable though. And then the next two books I'm gonna be talking about, oh my gosh, I hated with a freaking passion. I hated these books. These books were the worst books that I've ever read. Um, but um, Lady Susan by Jane Austen. I hated this book. And then Candide by Voltaire. Oh my gosh. That book, I don't know, like it just disgusted me. It just disgusts me. That's all I'm gonna say about that book. Because I don't think I can talk about this book. Um, you know. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. It disgusted me and I didn't like it. Anyway, and then I read Persuasion by Jane Austen. And this book was okay. Like I feel like I've read better Jane Austen books. I think she has better work out there, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. And then I read City of Ashes. I think this is the second or the third book in the series, I think. I'm not sure. I think, hold on, let me see. Yeah, this is the second book in the series. Yeah. And then, of course, as you guys already know, I reread Twilight because I talked about it so many times. Does it say how many times I've read this? I don't know, but I've read this so many times. I think I've read this book maybe like 4 or 5 times. This specific Twilight, like, oh my gosh, like this book. There's just something in there that I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed, and I love this series. It's my favorite, one of my first favorite book series that I fell in love with. And as you guys know, I don't know if I've talked about this or not, but growing up, I watched the Twilight movies, and I grew obsessed, and I just loved all the characters and all that stuff. And I'm not saying it's the best movie or books ever made, but I just know there's just something about this series that is is good. It's good. And although it's kind of toxic and all that, it's just a good series to watch read. So yes, I think my favorite character, I think I've talked about that. My favorite character is Emmett, of course. I think he's like the best, one of the best characters in in there. My favorite girl character though is Alice. I really love Alice's character. Wait, let me take this off. But yeah, I really like her character, and like I love watching. Even though I already know it, I love like watching videos about all the characters backstories before they become vampires. I really enjoyed that. And then I read the first book in Kimetsu to Doke. And oh, Twilight is by Stephanie Meyer, by the way. I like that. And then, but I read the first book in Kimetsu to Doke. The book is by Karuho Shina. Yeah, I hope I said that right. I don't know. And then, obviously this is like such a nostalgic and like I don't know. There's just yeah, it's just a nostalgic read, and because like I feel like we all like for stuff like that, like we all watched the anime before we read the manga, and yeah, that I don't know that there's just something beautiful about like the artwork and the stuff that they did, and like at that time period that just made everything just look so like it makes like now it just makes it feel so nostalgic and everything, and I love that good nostalgia feeling in like movies, TV shows, books. I love that feeling when like you like feel the nostalgia. about something. Anyway, and then I read Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. This is the second book I read by Catherine Center, and I enjoyed this book. I think I don't know, there's nothing really I can say about this book. Then I read New Moon, Eclipse, The Short Second Life of Bray Tanner, and Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer. I read the whole series. I always reread Twilight. I never read like the other books really like that. So I actually, for the first time, I read the whole series. Um, I read the whole series for the first time this year, but I kept rereading some of the books this year. So yes, I've reread Breaking Dawn so many times, and I also reread Twilight so many times. So yeah, and I think I reread Eclipse twice this year. I think. I'm not sure exactly. Then I read The City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, and yeah, I really enjoyed the Mortal Instruments series. I don't like her other books, so I don't think I'm gonna continue to like read the whole thing. I think I'll just like read the last two books, I think. So yeah, I don't know, like I just don't like the other ones. But yeah, my favorite out of the Mortal Instruments series is City of Bones. I I think the City of Bones. I think the first three is like my favorite, but yeah. But the City of Bones, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with that. um but yeah. And then I read The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow. And this book is about Mary Bennett, and she's kind of the, as like the title suggests, she's like the kind of forgotten sister, and it's just her story, and it was really good. I really enjoyed this. I really want to have this in the physical copy, but I don't yet. I hope, my hope for when I get my books, because I'm going to be getting a lot of books, um um that will be on my list to get. That has been in my cart for the longest time, but yeah, I just need to get that book. And next I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and her life is not what I expected it to be. I never knew like what she went through. I kind of knew about the ED that she had, but that was really it. I never really knew the extent of what her life was, but I guess um that's like, like people don't really want uh other people to see the kind of bad parts of their life. So I don't think none of us really expected that to be her life. I think um the stuff that she did on iCarly and with um what was it called again? Sam and Cat, and all that, all the other roles that she did when she was being a child actress. I think yeah, that was a lot. But yes, I read the first four books in the Vampire Diaries series. So I read The Awakening, The Struggle. Wait, is it The Awakening, The Struggle? Hold on. Yes. The Awakening, The Struggle, The Fury, and The Dark Return. So yes, But in the books, she becomes, in books terms, she as in Elena, she becomes a vampire so much earlier, because I feel like in the show, like, she becomes a vampire in like season 6 or something. I don't know. I feel like she becomes a vampire so like it's actually crazy, like, how long it takes for her to become a vampire, because I feel like she could have become a vampire so much earlier in the show, but no, she didn't. And I'm kind of surprised in the show she didn't become a vampire earlier in the show. But anyway, and then I read Peter Rabbit. I read the short stories, the complete tales of Beatrix Potter's Peter Rabbit. I'm not gonna talk about all the titles because that's just a mouthful. Anyway, then I read the ACOTAR series. I read A Court of Thorn and Roses, A Court and Mr. Fury, and A Court of Rings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. And yes, I yeah, I will not be reading her other books because there were some things I am not sure on the full extent of what she has done. I don't know. Um, but there's stuff about her that um that I just don't know if I want to continue to read her books. Yeah. So, yeah, and yeah, and support that. I don't want to support what she does. I don't know. Like, yeah, anyway. I read romantic comedy. Hold on, I'm gonna turn on the light because it's like super dark. Yeah, there we go. So I read romantic comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld, and this, it was not the best. And for it to be a romantic comedy, it was not really funny. So yeah, I don't know. Like, that just, it just wasn't, yeah, it just wasn't. The next one was Beach Read by Emily Henry. And I really, really enjoyed this. I think it was, I don't know, there was just something about this book that I just, Emily Henry, Beach Read, Emily Henry, I don't know, like, this was the first Emily Henry book that I've ever read, and I'm not sure. And I was like always so iffy about reading Emily Henry because I was just like, it's so popular. I don't know if it's gonna be good or not. But I was like, okay, let me finally give this book a chance because, yeah, especially Beach Read. A lot of people love Beach Read. And I was like, okay, let me read Beach Read, see what it's all about. And I've read Beach Read. It was okay. I liked the character. What is his name again? His name is Augustus. His name is Gus. Augustus. Did he go by Gus? I don't know. I don't remember. I liked him a little bit. But yeah. I read My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. Oh my gosh, my nose is so stuffed. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It was so funny. I really enjoyed this book. Yeah, I loved it. And then I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. And I really enjoyed this. This was like a cute little young romance book. They're like 17 or 18 or something. I don't remember. But yeah, they're like kind of obvious. It's obvious by the title, but Like this book is a kind of like chess. I was about to say tennis. No, chess. And yeah, and they're kind of like chess masters and blah blah blah. And yeah, and they and she beats him, like, young chess master. He's really good, and she beats him easily. And yeah, and then they meet up again because she joins this like chess team type deal, and because she needs to earn some money. And yeah, it's really, I really enjoyed this book. The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really good. Then I read A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas and A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. And I really loved, oh, people, man, seriously. Anyway, I really, I, but, I, oh my gosh. I'm messing up my words. I love Nesta. I think she, out of every character, she is my favorite. I don't know. I feel like she's just misunderstood. I think, I feel like she's coping just like everyone else is, and I feel like Resand is like not cutting her slack, because I feel like they give what's her name again? Eileen or something? Aileen? I don't remember. Something like that. They give her some slack because she's like nice and she doesn't really like, you know, but like her Vanessa's character is not like that. She's very headstrong. She's very I do what I want. But here is the thing. She grew up being pampered. She was kind of, she grew up like, like in a certain way, and Feyre wasn't. And that's not her fault. That's not her fault. That's none of the kids' fault for living a way that the other wasn't, you know? Because that's just not how life works. But for Rhysand to be like so, like, hold a grudge against her because of a way that she grew up, and her, like, in favor didn't, I feel like that's just unfair. Like, really, it really wasn't. Um because also Eileen wasn't doing anything either to help her or anything like that. So, yeah. So it doesn't really make any sense. Anyway, also another thing is I think she has a lot of character development, and yeah. And I think she deserves props for that because, you know, like, she did a lot for Feyre as well. She like literally saved her life. Like, like, that girl deserves some niceness. Oh my gosh. Anyway, she's like such a cool character. Then I read It's Not Summer Without You and We'll Always Have Summer by Jenna Han. And I didn't really like this series. I really didn't. So yeah, but I was like, I have to continue. I have to finish the series. So I was like, okay, read it. Yeah, whatever. I like the show better. I like the show better than the books. That's all I gotta say. Then I read Skip and Loafer by, who's this by again? It's by Misaki Takamatsu. I really enjoy Skip and Loafer. Can't wait for the next volume to come out. I read The Bodyguard for the second time this year. I wanted to reread it. So, yeah. Um, I read, did I say that the author was Catherine Sinner? The author was Catherine Sinner. Um, I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, I don't know how you say that. And then I read Skip and Loafer Volume 5. And then I read Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. I don't know. But this actually is becoming a show or a movie. I don't know what it is, but read it. I really enjoyed the first book. Didn't really like the second that much. And then yeah, I just stopped reading the series because I was like, I don't really want to continue. But yeah, and then I read Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, and yeah, it's just a classic children's book, so I had to read it. Then I read Skip and Loafer Volume 7 and 8. And then I read um, Alice Adventures in Wonderland by, who's it by again? I forget. Lewis Carroll. And I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I don't really remember much about this book, to be honest. But yeah, I read Hirano and Kagura. This is by Sho Harashino. Yeah, it's like a side character to wait, what is her name again? Misaki and Sak. Oh yeah, hold on. Sasaki and Miyano, like that's the characters' names. Yeah. Then I read Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood, and yes, I read all of her books out of order because I didn't know all of her books out of order. But yeah. Anyway, I didn't even know there was an order. So I just read them randomly. And yeah, and I also read a series from her books that were out of order. Yeah. So yeah, because I don't really remember, but I think I read the third book and then I read the first book and then I read the second book. So yeah, craziness. But yeah, I read Midnight Sun by Sonny Meyer, and this is kind of like Edward's perspective in Twilight. So yeah. Then I read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julie Gwynn, and this is Penelope and Colin's relationship. To be honest, I'm gonna say this forever. Like Colin like didn't work for it. Like he just didn't work for Penelope's love. I think the way that they got together and engaged, it was so fast. Like he didn't really work for it. Like yeah. And yeah, it was just like not like it. And I feel like also like Colin like he looks like he's supposed to be like a mature adult, but he's really not. Like I feel like he's just like he feels like a whiny child, and I feel like I don't know, like he's like so spoiled because he has this big family, and he has like the support from his mother and all that stuff. And I feel like also because he has like brothers and stuff, he doesn't really know. Like I know like he has like relationships with other women, but I feel like he just doesn't know how to um he doesn't know how to um treat Penelope even like as a lover instead of just a friend. And yeah, and that translates to the relationship and how the relationship is in the beginning, because of that, um in the show and in the book. It just doesn't translate the way that it should be. And I feel like Penelope deserves so much more than what she got. But yeah, but also it's on Penelope because she accepted Colin, even though he did not work for it. And also um and also she, like, I'm getting myself confused. She, like, those things that, um, like, she accepted that, she accepted that because she was just, I feel like also, like, she was just so tired of, being treated the way that she was, and, and the way that she was living, that she was like, okay, I just want to, you know, I just want to have a husband now. That I feel like that's like all she wanted, was to just have a husband and like find that's like someone loves her, and like that she is loved and appreciated. So yes, and then yeah, then I read Winnie the Pooh by A. Alman and Mullen. Yeah, Millen. And yeah, it's just a cute little book. Then I read the Iliad by Homer, and I really, really enjoyed that. I got like some inspiration, and I wrote some poetry from it. So, yeah. Then I read the Bromance Book Club, um, by Alicia K. Adams, and that's what the series is called, Bromance Book Club series. So cute. I really loved the idea of the whole series. And then I read Undercover Bromance, and the kind of premise that the books are kind of about is like they're um they're kind of having problems with their partners, and they have a book club obviously, but they talk about these books and they put it into their own lives to not only fix but like figure out what they're doing in their relationships wrong, or like that they could work on better and work that into their own personal lives and help out each other. And yeah, it's such a cute little um series, and I also want this in the physical copies as well. um Then I read Stuck With You by Ellie Hazelwood, and I think like they get stuck in an elevator or something. I don't know. I have no idea. I think so. I don't know. Anyway, I read The Grand Design by Stephen Hawking. And this one's kind of talking about, I think it's talking about like his um his I don't know. He's talking about his theories and all that stuff, and about the combos. And yeah. And um and yeah, I thought it was a really good book. But yeah. And then I read 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. Um, we obviously all know what that book is, so I'm not even gonna explain. Yeah. And then I read The Enchanted April by Elizabeth Arnim. I think that's how you say it, Arnim. And yeah, then I read Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood, and then I read Life and Death by Stephanie Meyer, and I did not like that. I didn't like it. And then I read Any Means Necessary by Lila Heron, and then this is like a dark romance type book. I liked it. I thought it was cute. Anyway, I read Gray by E.L. James, and then I read Darker by E.L. James, and this is kind of like if it says if it says 50 Shades, it's honest perspective. It's if it says just gray or darker, it's just Christian perspective. And yeah, and I read it in tandem. I read if I read 50 Shades of Grey, I read Gray, and if I read Darker, I read 50 Shades Darker. So yeah, but I read Anna's perspective first, then I read Christian Gray's um perspective after that, because I was just like, okay, I need to read Anna's perspective first because it's just not gonna make any sense. So yeah, anyway, so yeah, and I actually really liked that she did that. The author did that because is that a woman that wrote that? I don't know. I always thought that was just a woman who wrote that, but I don't know. But um I'm just gonna assume that it's a woman who wrote the books because I don't really know what EL stands for. But um I really like how she wrote the books in tandem to get both perspectives, and I feel like that's what Stephanie Meyer should have done in the Twilight books, so we could get Bella's perspective and Edward's perspective on each of the books. I would have loved to have seen Eclipse from Edward's perspective, because that is just crazy. Also, Breaking Dawn in Edward's perspective, that would have been so crazy. Like, but yeah. And I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. And yeah, it was so nostalgic because we grew up watching these movies, and then now I'm just like reading the book. It's just like really cool. Then I read 50 Shades Freed and by E.L. James. And then I read Crazy Stupid Bromance, and this is the third book in the Bromance Book Club series. So yeah, and then I read Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, and I don't know, she just had a way with words and the way that the characters were, and like everything was just so beautiful, and I just loved that. And then I read Isn't It Romantic, and then I read A Very Merry Bromance, and yeah, loved it. And then I read Skip and Loafer Volume 9. And then I read Grimoire Girl by Hilary Burton Morgan. And this is a memoir, and it's also grimoire, and I really just loved the I loved the way that she wrote it. Like, she just has a way with words, and her words are so amazing and they grab you in. And I never felt that way about a book, a memoir, before ever. And I read this on my birthday, and I was just like, and like also like the book, like it made me cry. I literally, this is also the first time ever that I've cried from a memoir. And I was just crying from it. And I don't know, like I just felt something from that book. Like that was just like and like it made me think, and I love books that make me think. And yeah, it was just so wonderful. I really enjoyed that. And then I read A Bear Called Paddington by Michael Bond. And then I read Freed by E.L. James. And then I read Anne of Avonlea by Ella Montgomery. And yeah, and I stopped at that because I was just like, okay, I don't really like how this is going. I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's just something I just didn't like. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stop now. So I stopped at the second book, and yeah. And then I read Bride by Allie Hazelwood, and this is kind of like vampire werewolf type thing. And she lives in the human world, but she gets called by her father, and she has to marry this werewolf for an alliance type thing. And yeah, she's just like, what? I don't want to do that. But she has to, so she does. And and a lot of things go down. And yeah, at first, I was not really into it until I was. And like, I feel like you have to like reading stuff like this to really get it and enjoy it. So, yeah. And then I read The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. And wait, no. Yeah. Okay, I was like, wait a minute. But no, I read The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, and I loved it, and I love how it has autism representation. Um, and then I read The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and then I read Rebel Girl by Kathleen Hanna. Um, and then I read The Bride Test by Helen Wong. Sorry. And then I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I really like this. It's very poetic, and I really liked how the writing style was, and I liked um I don't know, at that time I was like really interested in mythology. I always get like bursts of interest of mythology, so yeah, I was just really enjoying this. And yeah, I really liked it. It was about Achilles and Patroclus. Let me think. Is it? Yeah, Patroclus. And it's their love story. And then I read Set on You by Amy Leah. And this is like a okay, I don't know why I was blanking. She's a fitness influencer, and it's kind of like about like the book series is kind of like about that, like all of them are influencers in some type of way. But yeah, Set on You is she's a fitness influencer, and she meets like this firefighter that goes to the same gym that she does. And yeah, and they just, yeah, they get together. Then X's and O's is the second book, and I think she's like her sister or her cousin or something from the first book, I think. Yeah. And um and basically she moves into this new apartment, and ends up that her roommate is um her sister slash cousin, I don't remember, friends, um like they used to share, like her partner used to share apartment with her new roommate. And yeah, and they're both like, he is a firefighter as well, and she is a book influencer. And basically in this book, like if I'm remembering correctly, um she basically like goes on dates with her exes and tries to see what went wrong in her relationship and why they broke up. And yeah, and it's kind of about that. And then like he ends up helping her. He finds out and he ends up helping her, and they end up like you know getting together. And like they just end up getting together because like yeah, it's just cute. Then I read The Love Wager by Len Painter. I really enjoyed this. This is like I don't know. There's just something about Len Painter's books that I just like I actually do really enjoy and like. Then I read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. And then I read The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. And to be honest, this book looks boring, and also like in the beginning it was kind of a little boring, but then I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick through it because I feel like it's gonna be good. And it was good. I think it could have been better. I don't know. I don't know. Like it was just not. I don't think it was the writing or the story or anything. I think it was just like the setting. It was just not more. It was just not the best. And also, tell me why, if I'm remembering correctly, I think this is the book. Um, the love interest in the book keeps stealing her makeup and her stuff, and she's like, "Where's my stuff?" Because like she just and because he just thinks she's like this stuck up city girl. And yeah. And I was like, okay, like, give her back her stuff. like, like why like didn't you give her back her stuff? Like come on now. Like if she wants to wear makeup, let her wear makeup. Like that's not up to you. Like why you steal her stuff for her? And yeah, that was just like so weird. Anyway, then I reread Normal People by Sally Rooney. I love Normal People. It's literally one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite books. And yeah. And yeah, I love it. Also, I reread the book because of Connell. That is literally why. I was like, okay, I need to read more of Connell. And I was like, okay. But yeah. And then I read On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. And then I read Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is actually the second book. I did not read the first book. The first book is like When in Rome. I didn't read that. I just didn't really want to read it. And yeah, and I still haven't. I don't think I will. I think that's just it. Yeah, I read it because he has tattoos. And she owns a flower shop. Anyway. Then I read The City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. Yeah. And then I read Begin Again by Emma Lord. And then I read To Sir Philip with Love by Julie Quinn. Then I read The Heart Principle by Hun Huang. And then I read The Mister by E.L. James. And this is another series. And yeah. This one is actually pretty this one's actually pretty crazy. But yeah, I recommend. I recommend. Um then I read A Guide to Being Just Friends by I don't know who it's by. It's by Sophie Sullivan. Yeah, I don't know. I really like this book. This is a series. This is actually the third book in the series, but I didn't read the first two. Anyway. And then I read Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. This is, I think, this is the first book I ever read of Tessa Bailey's, but I'm not sure. I don't think I read anything else by her, but at this time, I still don't think I have read anything else by Tessa Bailey. I'm not sure, but anyway. Then I read The Misses by E.L. James, which is the second book. And then I read Funny, You Don't Look Autistic by Michael McGeary. And then I read Harry Potter Source. And then I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the first time I read, like, I've tried to read this book so many times, but I never finished it. And I finally finished the first book this year. But yeah. And then I read the other Miss Bridgerton by Julie Quinn. And then I read The Road to Roswell by Connie Willis. And I really enjoyed this book. I really, truly recommend. This book was just something else. Like, I really just enjoyed this book. And I thought that this book was really good at. And, like, all the characters and the alien was just so funny. Like, it was just really good. Anyway. Then I read Jaws by Peter Benchley. This book was boring. Next, I read Waiting for Tom Hanks by Carrie Winfrey. And yeah, I thought it was like a cute little romance. And then I read the second book. I read Not Like the Movies by Carrie Winfrey. And also, I thought it was a cute little romance. Then I read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And let me just tell you something. I don't like this book. I don't like it at all. Like, I think that the book was bad. I don't like it. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. But other people love this book, and that's okay. I don't like it. I didn't like it. So, next. I read Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare. This is also like the second or third book. They, on Libby, they just did not have the other one. So I was like, I don't really care. So I'll just read this. So I did. And I don't think you need to read the other books. I think. I don't know. Then I read If We Ever Meet Again by Anna Wong, and I really enjoyed this. And yeah, I really liked the series. So yeah. Then I read Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Like, Lynn Painter, I really like your books. I really do. Then I read It by Stephen King, and this took me, I don't even know, like, this took me many years to finish this book. I don't know why, but this book took me, I don't know, I started this book when I was 16, 17, and now I'm 20. I'm just like, okay. Like, this book took me a very long time to read. This book is 45 hours long, guys. 45 hours long. Let me just tell you, this took me forever. But it was so good, guys. It was so good. And I actually have like past notes on my phone and stuff like that from the book, and like just like my favorite lines or stuff like that. And I don't have them like I can't read them to you right now, but I do have them. And yeah, still, and yeah, I just really enjoyed this. It's not as scary as watching the movie. I literally watched the first movie and oh my gosh, I had to stop watching it. I had to stop watching it. I was like, I can't do it. So yeah, but yeah. Then I read When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. And yeah, I can't wait to see in Bridgerton how they're gonna do this storyline in Bridgerton. And I also can't wait for Benedict's story because that's gonna be this the new season. It's gonna be Benedict and Sylvie Bennett. Beckett? Is it Beckett or Bennett? I don't know. I think it's Beckett. Anyway, so I read Never Ever Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez, and this is like they have this ex, and yeah, and like it's kind of like a dating show of all the exes, and yeah, and then like yeah, and basically to win back his heart or something, but they all like all the girls like really just don't um none of the girls like really end up like getting with him, I don't think, in the end. And also like he he's just not really a good guy. Like he's kind of a jerk. And yeah, and also he's a liar. And yeah. And also he's a two-timer. And yeah. And then two of the girls actually get together. And they're like, "Oh, they're like, oh, I like you. I actually like you actually." And then they get together. Anyway, and then I read Twisted Hate by Anna Wang, and this one I enjoyed better than the second one. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like just yeah, just that. I don't know. Then I read A Telltale Heart by um Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know why I forgot his name, but yeah, I read that. Then I read If the Sun Never Sets by Anna Wong. I think this is, I don't know which book. Oh, this is the second book. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this series. I thought it was really cute. And yeah, and there's a lot of drama that goes on in the series. And yeah, and you just see it. You just see it. And you just have to read it. You just gotta read it. Yeah. Then I read The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock, and I watched the movie before, and I was like, okay, I didn't even know there was a book, so I was like, okay, let me read the book, and I was like, okay, it's October, like I is it October at this time? I don't know. I think it's October. Anyway, I was like, okay, I needed like a scary book. I was like trying so hard to find a scary book. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll just read this. And then I was like, okay, it's kind of boring, but I was like, let me stick with it. Like, a very disgusting and very eerie type book. And a little bit, but yeah, yeah. And then I read, um, wait, okay. Then I read Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. Yeah. Then I read Siddhartha by Herman Hesse, and this book, oh my gosh, this book opened my eyes in so many ways. And this book made me think, and it just like, I feel like I related to Siddhartha. like like as well. And like I also felt like I read this book at the same, like at the perfect time. Like I read it when I needed to read this book, and yeah, I want to do a reread, but I kind of want to do like I want to, because I want to like make more notes and I want to annotate this book. Um but I just have not had the time to, because I wanted to give like other books a chance before I reread something like that and annotate it. So I was like, okay, I'll just do it. I'll just do it in the new year. I'll just do it in the new year. Whenever I can. Anyway, but yeah, I so much enjoyed this book. And then I read The Witcher, The Sword of Destiny. And yes, this book was absolutely like crazy. I enjoyed this so much. I was like, okay, I'm reading the next book. And so I got the next book and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. I love it. I love it. And yeah. And then I read where and then I read Paris the Memoir. Paris Hilton's life is so crazy. Like, why are celebrities' lives so crazy before they become like famous? But also, like, she was already like famous kind of because of her family and stuff, but like, still, like, she was just like her life was so crazy. Like, how is like every celebrity's life so crazy before they get famous? Like, but yeah, she had like a very crazy and very like, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh, I feel so like like sad for her because like the stuff that she went through. But also now she's just like, she like made, she got a bill passed from, like, if you read this book, you know what I'm talking about. She got a bill passed. Like, she is that girl. Like, okay, like, she's awesome. Like, I've always really liked her, and now like I was just like, I had so much more respect for her. But yeah, it was just so cool to see like all the stuff that she has done, despite her childhood and her past. I feel like she really overcame all that stuff, and she's like, okay, I'm just gonna do my thing. And I was like, I gotta get out of this. I gotta get out of this trap, and they keep putting me back in the trap, but I'm gonna get out. Like, I was like, that's so cool. That's so cool that she did that. Anyway, then I read The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, and that's just in the Witcher series. And then I read If You Were Perfect by Anna Huang, and then I also read If Love Had a Price by Anna Huang, and then I read the Holy Bible, but I only read the New Testament. So yeah. Anyway, and then I read Mythology by Edith Hamilton, and I feel like this one is the most, I don't know if it is or not, but I feel like this is the most accurate and the most fun book that I've ever read on mythology. And yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool to see all the stories and stuff. My favorite mythology story is Psyche. I think her name is Psyche or Psyche. I'm not sure how you say it. And Eros. I really love their story because it's very interesting. And then I read Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. And then I read You with a View by Jessica Joyce, and I really like this one. This one was like kind of like letters to Juliet, and like kind of finding like the old partner, and yeah, it was just really cute. And then I read Honey and Spice by Bab Babalola. I hope I said that right. I don't know if I said I don't know if I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. But yeah, and then I read The Time of Contempt, and then I found my love. I found my love. I read the first book in the Lockwood and Co series, and that is called The Screaming Scare? No. The Screaming Staircase. Oh my gosh, I love the Lockwood and Co series. Then I read Baptism of Fire by Andrzej Sapkowski, and yes. Then I read The Whispering Skull, and that's the next book in the Lockwood and Co series. And then I read Soul Boom: Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution by Rainn Wilson. If you guys don't know who that is, he is Dwight Schrute from The Office. I can't really remember any of his other roles right now at the moment, but that's just his most well known and his most iconic character. So yeah, so that's just, yeah. Then I read The Dagger in the Desk by Jonathan Stroud. It's like a kind of novella in between the series of Lockwood and Co. And yeah. And then I read It's in His Kiss by Juliet Quinn. And then I read The Hollow Boy. And then The Creeping Shadow. And then Empty Grave. And yeah. And then I read Beautiful Creatures for, this is a reread. I don't know how many times I've read this book, but I read it, and yeah. I don't know. This time reading this book, I don't know. I think I like the movie more, but there's more stuff in the book that I wish they put in the movie. But yeah, anyway. And then I read The Tower of the Swallow by Andrzej Sapkowski. And then I read To Marry and to Meddle by Martha Waters. And then I read The Catch by Amy Leah. And that's the third book in the, I don't know what series this is called. Oh, it's just called The Influencer series. So yeah, and what is she? I forget. I think she's like a fashion influencer or something. I don't know, but yeah, anyway, then I read okay. I think I think I read Ghosted first by Amanda Quain. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. But yeah, this one was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed this one. I think this one is like based off of Northanger Abbey, and yeah, it's just like a kind of spooky, ghosty type romance book. Anyway, oh, teenage romance, I should say. Anyway, then I read Daydream by Hannah Grace. I really enjoyed this. Also kind of like neurodivergent representation. We love to see it. Even though they don't really talk about like the specifics, I really just enjoyed seeing like they're just talking about it and talking about the struggles. I really like that. I love to see the representation anyway. And then I read The Lady of the Lake by Andrzej Sapkowski. And then I read Twisted Lies by Hannah Wang. And this one is about, his name is Christian, right? Yeah. And then I read, oh wait, no. And Stella. Then I read Emma by Jane Austen. And I really like this. I finally read this because this was supposed to be my first book that I was supposed to read in my reading journey in 2022, but I was like, okay, I'm just gonna read something else. So I read that something else, and I never I never finished it. So I was like, okay, let me just read this book because I'm like, I need to read this book. So I did, and I really enjoyed it. Then, oh my gosh, I love this book. I read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, and oh my gosh, this book is so good. And this book is crazy. There's so many things in this book, but I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then I read The Art of Mindful Living. And then I read The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. And oh, this book made me cry. This book made me cry. Oh my gosh. And then I read Circe. Yeah. And then I read The Season of Storms. And then I read Codename Charming by Lucy Parker. This book was so cute. And I read Every Duke Has His Day by Suzanne Enoch. And then I read Coraline by Neil Gaiman. And then I found another love. I read Moon Called by Patricia Briggs, and not this year, then in the new year, I'm going to continue to be reading her books. And yeah, because I fell in love with her books, and now I just have to read everything that she ever wrote. So yeah. And then I read The Long Game by Elena Armas, and I loved this book. Loved this book. I want to get this and the physical copy. I want to get the physical copy of this book. Give it to me right now. Give it to me right now. And then I read Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. And I was familiar with the author, so I was like, okay, let me read this. So I read it. Then I read Bloodbound and Iron Kiss by Patricia Briggs. And then I read Will They or Won't They by, does that say Anna or Ava? I think that says Ava. Ava Wilder. And this is kind of like, and they're like both actors. They're like in the beginning, like they're like beginning actors, and they get on the show. It's very famous. And then after a few years, they're just like, they don't like each other, and they actually got together, but then they broke up for some reason, and you don't really find out until a little bit later. And they, yeah, it's just like they just don't like each other. and and they have to kind of just work through that because they have to get through another season. And yeah, it's just craziness. And then I read The Dating Dare by JC Lee. And then I read Skip and Loafer, Volume 10. And then I read All My Fiance and I did was Fight, But Now He's All Over Me. And I read 1 through 3 of that. Then I read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And I really enjoyed this book. I love the movie too. Anyway, then I read Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. And I read this twice this year. I read this like earlier, and then I read it in December of this year. So yeah. And yeah, I don't know why I read this twice, but I was like, I need a wintry book, and this was the only wintry book I could find. So I was like, okay, this is what we have to read, I guess. Then I read The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot or Cabot, I don't know. I don't know. Then I read A Sweet Mess by J.C. Lee. And then I read First Comes Scandal by Julia Quinn. And then I read Silverborn by Patricia Briggs. And then I read The Girl with the Make-Believe Husband by Julia Quinn. And I read Just Like Heaven by Julia Quinn. And then I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And I love this book. I'm actually getting this book in my haul. I loved it. Loved it. And then I read Lust by Skylar Mason. This is the third book. Oh my gosh, this, guys. Guys, this book is literally, oh my gosh. I feel like this one was kind of cringy. Wait, is this? Yeah. This book was a little cringy because, like, whenever, like, I read, like, kind of like spicy scenes in books, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, it feels like I walked in on a personal matter and I shouldn't have walked, that I should not have walked into. And yeah, but I feel like this, like, the stuff that Mariana, the character, was going through, I felt like I feel like it could be relatable to some, so I really liked how they kind of included like the kind of side of like her story where she was like, I don't like I just like that's just not me. Like, I don't believe in the same things that you do, but I'm not any less of who you know me as just because I don't believe in the same things that you do. That just, means that I just don't have the same beliefs. Like, we don't have the same beliefs and opinions. That's it. And also, I feel like, yeah, like, I feel like, going on that, spiritual journey, is important for a lot of people. So I really encourage that, you guys, like, read this book because, I recommend reading the whole series, but, like, this book in particular, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I kind of, like, relate in a way to this character because of, like, because of that. So, yeah. Anyway. And then I read A Night Like These, no, A Night Like This by Julia Quinn. And then I read Bone Crossed. And I read Cry Wolf by Patricia Briggs. And then I read Because of Miss Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. And then I read River Marked by Patricia Briggs. Then I read Frostburned by Patricia Briggs. And I DNF'd this, but yeah, I just put that in my read books because it was like, whatever. I read Beartown, but I DNF'd it. So yeah, I just thought it was boring. Anyway, and then I read An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. And then I read Hunting Ground by Patricia Briggs. I read Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. Then I read To Have and to Hoax by Martha Waters. And then I read Down the Drain by Julie Fox's book, oh my gosh, like I said, why do people before they become famous have crazy lives? She had the most craziest life ever, and I was like, oh my gosh, like these people are just so iconic. Like I can't. Julie Fox is so cool. Like I think she's so cool. Like the stuff that she did, like so cool. Anyway, then I read Me and My Beast Boss, Volume 3. And then I read The Lady Most Willing by Julia Quinn and Eloisa James and Connie Brockway. And then I read the same people, The Lady Most Likely. I guess it was like a collab thing. And then I read Princess in the Spotlight by Meg Cabot. And then I read Princess in Love, Princess in Waiting, Princess in Pink, Princess in Training, Party Princess, Princess on the Brink, and Princess Mia, and Forever Princess by Meg Cabot. And then I read Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. And then I read The Groom List by Ella Quinn. And then I read Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry by Rachel Joyce. And then I read An Affair Before Christmas. And yeah, I wanted the Christmas vibes, so that's what I read. And then I read The Royal Wedding by Meg Cabot. And I also read The Quarantine Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. Anyway, and then I read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. And then I read The Lost Duke of Wyndham by Julia Quinn. And then I read, hold on, I don't know. Oh, and then I read Mr. Cavendish, I Presume by Julia Quinn. And then I read 10 Things I Love About You by Julia Quinn. And then I read the second book. I read My Vampire Plus One, and I loved it. So cute. By Jenna Levine. And then my most recent read, I read Love Pamela by Pamela Anderson. And oh my gosh, this girl, like, oh my gosh, she has the most intoxicating, most beautiful voice, and it's so sweet too. Like, oh, I love it. Like, I love when people narrate their own books. I think narrate their own memoirs. I think it just adds more. I think if someone else like read their own memoir, it just doesn't feel personal, and it doesn't feel like they wrote it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just feels like something else, but yes. And then the last book that I'm going to be reading is The Divine Comedy by Dante. I don't know. I don't know who's by it. Hold on. Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. Yes. So yeah, that's the last book that I'm going to be reading this year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This video is very, very long, so I'm sorry about that. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.